When we look at the stock market going into this week, as you look at the NASDAQ, you can see you're at a very pivotal point, this being your all-time high right here. We could also identify that there's not too much resistance as we get close into this all-time high. There's really not. And I would argue that this is kind of your last little line of defense if you're a short seller at this point, right? This little level here is that kind of it. After this, there's not much. You're going to push up with relative ease. Now, if you go into QQQ, if you'd rather use the QQQ index to identify this, and that's what you really trade, you can see that we moved up pretty illiquid into that 494 level. And then after this as well, you're not, again, just not going to get that much. Go like a 2-hour, 4-hour chart to identify some of these levels. You can see there's a little bit of chop in this range, but again, I just don't find it to be that much whatsoever. You could argue that your next real line of defense as far as against buyers would be near 496, 497. Biggest thing right there. Now, the other part of this is you look at the other part of the market that's, not NASDAQ and not primarily semiconductors and tech. And as we look here, let's quickly just clean this up here for you. There's not much. I mean, you're at all-time highs. Like, not that there's not much. There's nothing up here, right? We can identify where we mounted above these levels as well, clearly mounting above previous highs, holding above. And then you had that little break here as well, that little local high you made there before pulling back. And again, we look at that and you're mounting there again. And this is something I've been really hammering home on Twitter. If you follow, we'll go into that here in a second. But, clearly mounting, things you want to see. And if you go into SPY, I think the chart's even simpler to really look at here. I had this posted on Twitter. I'll go into that here in a sec. But, go to the daily and you can identify as well. This is one of the cleaner charts that you might see for the year, right? Previous high back here in July, you mount above that level, you push in, new high here, you mount above that level, you push higher. That's where we're at, right? So that's incredibly, incredibly bullish. You look at Dow, equally at all-time highs as well. So it looks really good. And I want to highlight something before we go too far into anything else is like, yeah, you're getting those, the sectors that are heavy in the NASDAQ moving now, like SMH, it's starting to, catch some fire, but, you're breaking above a big level right now. XLK Tech breaking back out as well. But the sectors that really moved this week in all-time highs were some of the slower sectors that we haven't really seen get the traction, right? XLI Industrials, Dow Heavy, XLF, Dow Heavy. So important to understand what's really breaking out here and that you're getting some of the slower movers, which again takes me back to like 2023 when we had the bank crisis. Remember the bank crisis happened, everything pulled back, and then you had the fear of the government shutdown. And then after that, the government shutdown solved itself out. You popped back up in these markets, and the rest of the market got involved. We know how that ended, pretty much for bears in that case as well. So super important that we're identifying that. Again, I always talk about Twitter because I want to give you guys as much free content as possible. If you guys don't follow on Twitter, I recommend doing so. Again, I like to have a good time, but I also like to give you guys as many charts as possible as you guys can see, right? Going over everything. If there's a chart you want me to cover, it's most likely on Twitter. So again, make sure you check it out. So I'm trying to keep you guys as updated as possible there. So going back into SPY, again, the quick question everyone asks is like, where are we going here? I personally believe you look like you want to get continuation because you're at all-time highs. You can't be a bear when you're only making higher highs, right? So the biggest thing to identify there. So the first thing I want to point out, and again, I post this on Twitter so you guys can see this as well, but you need to be paying attention to what's happening in the Middle East. I don't think it should be the end all be all of what you're looking at when it comes to the charts, but I think you have to be paying attention to this news here. Again, we saw what Israel said that they told the United States it won't attack the nuclear facilities, but again, they are going to most likely target Iranian state facilities and oil infrastructure. You also need to understand if this escalates further that the nuclear facilities become a target. Like that just will evolve over time, which will be like not good for the market. So again, this is more like big question mark. So this is the only thing that's really holding us back, right? But again, is it really holding us back because we've made higher highs here, right? If we go look at these sell-offs here, even here, the sell-off, going back here, this was all based on news as well. So I identify that, know that, be paying attention. I'll keep you guys updated on Twitter as well. The other thing throughout the week, okay, this is just what's happening across the board for America. Don't really care too much about anybody else. Get your OPEC report tomorrow. Again, you have some Fed speakers. I'm definitely paying attention to Fed speakers. You have a lot of people that are worried about PPI and CPI, but the Fed keeps coming out with the same notion of like, we're on track. We look good. We are happy. And if the Fed continues on that path, it's difficult to be bearish. Like, I'm just going to say that as easily as possible. It's hard to be a bear if the Fed is happy. So understand that. As long as they expect rate cuts, the market will like what's happening. Now, will that create issues down the road? Yes. More Fed members speaking on Tuesday. Not too much happening here on Wednesday. Again, you have some Philly Fed information coming out here too. Core retail sales as well on Thursday. Jobless claims. I'm paying attention to jobless claims. Those are the most important thing lately here as far as the CPI and PPI. And then you have more Fed members speaking here on, I think that's Friday. Yeah. So again, not too much. Some housing data as well, which we'll pay attention to, but it's not the big one that we really care about. So again, mostly just some Fed speakers here and there, but again, nothing major as far as data is concerned. Okay, understand that. So that's the biggest thing going into this week. I want to make sure these things are just understood, known, levels, etc. I'll be keeping you guys posted on Twitter as well. Next level here, DXY. What's happening here? Again, I like to go over DXY to give you the risk on metrics and what's happening. Now, a few very important areas here. I want to just get rid of everything here. Let's get rid of everything and just highlight the bottom because we're kind of moving on here, right? So just the bottom of this little range that's established, okay? All things considered, typically when the DXY, moves up, we get a risk-off environment where people want to, take money out of equities. Well, that's not happening right now. You're still bouncing. You're still finding buyers, okay? We'll go into that here in a second. Go to 30-year yield, which is following the dollar, pushing right back up, really breaking out almost here, right? This is an issue. When they're cutting rates, you expect this to help housing inflation because this should bring down mortgage rates. This was a big shocker. I can admit that I'm wrong based on the reaction here. I anticipate selling will encourage on yields and yields will eventually come back down. But for right now, this is not the reaction you want to see. You definitely want to see lower highs continue to be established here like they have been since 2023, back here. Okay, that's the big notion, things you need to be paying attention to, what I'm watching for there. Now, what I will say is when and if the dollar starts to sell off, again, it will put more fuel, in my opinion, on the fire on the NASDAQ. Because we can definitely see, right? We go from July 1st basically into, September 27th. Now, obviously, you had this stuff that happened in Japan, and that thing, that was the big sell-off that we had back here where you really started declining. I believe it was like the beginning of August here, over like 20,000, just overnight, just crash and then bounce back up, right? That was the bad news, right? Or that was the bad overall. We saw the DXY kind of pull back, but we also saw the NASDAQ move in tangent with that. But, the NASDAQ's been kind of hit or miss here, right? We go to SPY and we look at that reaction. SPY's pushed up and really rode that risk on mentality when the DXY was dropping. Very important to understand that, where we're at and how I see us moving forward. You definitely recovered a lot better here on the S&P 500 than the NASDAQ. That being said, semiconductors trying to break out here have me very excited. And I think if the dollar starts to dip, yields start to dip as well. I do believe semiconductors, tech looks very good. The next part this leads me into is earnings that are coming up. Now, this first week right now will be, the beginning, if not of earnings season. So as we're going into earnings season, again, if you don't follow Earning Whispers on Twitter, I recommend doing so. Really awesome page. They keep everyone updated as far as the next week's earnings, what's going to happen there. This coming week is going to be a little bit big, right? We have TSM and Netflix on Thursday. And then you're going to have some airlines and some banks. The banks always really start us off. And, Netflix and TSM are usually the first of the tech names to kind of come out in semiconductors, right? The week after, we'll get, I believe Tesla. I think we'll get some Amazon, Meta, things like that. So we really start heating up. This is going to be the beginning of earnings season. I do believe, semis are in a very interesting spot. Getting the breakout. We've talked about 256 for a long time here. You break out over this, the gap fill into 270. What do you think happens if SMH semiconductors break out? What do you think happens to NVIDIA, which is already breaking out of its pennant? What do you think is going to happen here? Do you think it's going to run to highs? Well, then the next question, the ladder onto that is, well, what do you think happens to the NASDAQ if NVIDIA breaks all-time highs? What happened last time? Food for thought. Then we go on names like AVGO, which is, one of the largest holdings in the NASDAQ top 5. It might even be higher. I haven't checked recently. But again, since they've done some of the rebalancing over the past, year. But again, we look at AVGO, and again, you hit all-time highs this week. What happens when SMH breaks out and AVGO starts pushing towards $200 and NVIDIA is moving, right? It's very important to understand that you're getting the best mood on NASDAQ when SMH semiconductors start moving, right? And then we go into some of the other names like Apple, which has been consolidating locally near highs. We go into, Netflix, which made all-time highs. We go into Meta, which has made all-time highs. Microsoft, which is kind of just trending down here near the 200 SMA. You can actually break out and look better here. Again, you start pushing up. Again, these are things you need to start thinking about. Sometimes they're either weak and have a lot of room to start running, and the catalyst on where they can really start moving as well here. Because I don't think anything negative has happened to Microsoft's earnings or what's going to happen there. Same thing with Google, right? So these are all things that are very interesting. And I would say Google is one of the more interesting charts with the inverted head and shoulders. We'll talk about that here in a second as well. So again, you have a really good runway, in my opinion, for some of these stocks. Now, I'm not telling you to YOLO or go long or anything like that. That's not what I'm telling you right now, right? I'm just telling you that you are at all-time highs on the S&P and Dow. And that's historically not the best time to go short. The other part of this too is NASDAQ is at a critical point to where it can start moving up very aggressively, right? And again, people want to jump to the short thesis and this is bearish, this and that. Guys, again, I always say it, you don't got to be the first ones to go short. And I'll tell you right now, I don't know why I need to go over this so much, but I will. Where I get bearish on the market is just simply if the SPY breaks back below 565. If you start to break back below this, you have plenty of downside. The trade is simple, right? You break, you retest, you trade continuation. You moved up very illiquid, you'll have tons of downside down to 555, possibly down to 540, 545. So again, lots of stuff to talk about there if we start to break down, but why jump the gun, right? There's no real reason to jump the gun to be the first one into that trade, right? Ride the momentum, understand if you're day trading, you're focused on the overall trend. You're not trying to buck the system or anything along those lines. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Also, too, guys, if you are interested, I do want to highlight, again, I never keep all my indicators up here because it just looks, look how much cluttered it looks, right? But these are my day trading indicators I use. The Relux Algo, the link is down below. You can use code OD40 for 40% off. But again, our volume indicator is obviously our favorite indicator that we use here, displaying sellers versus buyers. There's a lot you can really do here with the Lux Algo price concepts. You can do your fair value gaps, your breakers, your liquidity zones. I always tinker and go back and forth between sometimes the fair value gaps when I'm trading futures here and there. I'll look at them, but I love the premium and discount zones. One of my favorite things on Lux Algo, and it adjusts obviously to your time frame. So if you're a day trader, really good. Just a reminder of some of these levels as well. Make sure you check that out for yourself. But again, links down below. But going a little bit further though, stocks I'm liking this week, what I'm looking at. I mean, I'm not trading NVIDIA. I want to make this really clear. I'm not looking to like hammer NVIDIA calls. Like I think, and I've been saying NVIDIA long dated calls have been the best play in the market for, months now. So yeah, but I am looking at NVIDIA to start pushing all-time highs if it breaks above basically 136.5. Okay. AMD, I've also slowed down here, but I will say I made that video after AMD's event. And the retest of the 200 was a really good opportunity. As long as you hold the 200, you look good. The day trade opportunity is mounting back above these local highs from the 26th of September. So again, very simply put, what you're looking for is the break, the retest, and continuation back into this level up here. You have a little bit of a gap at 174.7, so definitely looking at that. Micron. So I like Micron a lot. Jordan has actually, shout out to Jordan. Love that guy so much, right? So you have your 100 daily moving average up here, which I don't track often, but Jordan has kept me honest here. So your 100 daily moving average is also right up here at 112. So I personally love the double bottom opportunity and then the break of that neckline pushing back through basically 112, 111. If you can mount the 100 daily moving average, I think you're moving towards 130. Very aggressive, maybe like 127, but you have a lot of room, like $20 of upside almost. So check that out there. Micron's very, very, very interesting. So keep that on your mind. People have been asking about Palantir. Guys, Palantir's at all-time highs. I'm not trading Palantir at all-time highs. Robinhood, I've talked about Robinhood for a while as well. I just want to go over recap some of these names because I know people have questions on them. Guys, we bought Robinhood at $18, $19. We bought it at $14. I'm not buying at highs. I have some dated calls as well there as well for 2026. But again, the ship has sailed, right? It's tough. I think Chipotle, if you guys are interested in a cheaper name as well, is a really interesting opportunity. I've been saying it since you mounted $57 here in the 200 SMA on the daily. That was an awesome opportunity, but I still think you have room back into highs there on Chipotle as well. So keep that in your mind. Reddit also, we mentioned this down here near $50, $60. You're back near all-time highs. Incredible, awesome name. Very, very bullish in this name as well. A long dated, higher low is clearly established as well. So again, break over 75. You're probably, I think this has a run towards $100 over the next months or so, with the market really breaking back up. And also too, for you guys wondering about IWM, again, IWM, you don't have any resistance down here. I'm not worried about this, right? Break above 226 and hold. You look really good back to the upside. Very simple. Affirm, Upstart, these have been my favorite names. I mentioned Affirm when you got back above $41. You broke back into 46.5, 47. You look amazing on Affirm. You look very strong as well. I think Affirm can keep breaking out towards 52. Upstart, monster name breaking out at 39 again. So all the same levels, guys, we've mentioned for a long time here. They all look good. Looking for $49, $50 here as well. I think Amazon's very interesting with how you close the week here. More of a day. This is one of my more basic day trade opportunities here. I posted this on Twitter. Expect to see more of it this week. As long as you're above 188.67, I'm looking for 191, give or take, maybe even higher. This is your 2021 high, so you're very bullish above this level. This is what you want to break, retest, and then continuation up, getting the action you want to see. Microsoft is one of those really beware names. Be careful. If you can mount above 417, 418, the 200 SMA, I like the upside. Below 414.3, I like the downside. Back down near 410. Be careful. Apple's been kind of on that path of trying to get into 232. I don't love trading Apple here personally. Above this little swing high right here though, 227.4, you look good. I'm just not a fan of Apple here. I'm gonna tell you totally honest, brutal truth, right? Netflix has earnings. I'm not looking to trade them, but you push in the highs, kind of volatile up here. Again, you had the breakout of the little bull flag we mentioned on Twitter as well. So can only do and say so much there. Looks like a good name as well, but again, not trading with earnings. The contracts are just way too expensive. Tesla, probably my last name I'm going to mention here. Tesla, I'm bearish on this name, to be honest, guys, at least until the election. I think you're coming down to 203, 204. It's the most likely scenario. I love the downside here. It makes a lot of sense. I didn't even see this, but you're on the 100-day moving average. You break below this, you're dropping. So, again, very bearish on Tesla. Don't like it at all. Personal opinion. If you have questions, comment down below. Again, Twitter is the best way to get a hold of us, guys. If you're interested in Discord, things like that, the links are either down below. There might be spots allowed, but you can also DM me on Twitter if you're interested. So have a good one, traders. I'll see you tomorrow.